How did Argentina help save Europe's vineyards during the devastating Phylloxera crisis? Why is wine still treated as an exclusive product despite being more accessible than ever? And how can vineyards that endure extreme temperatures still produce elegant, vibrant wines? In today's episode, you'll hear the stories and tips that answer those questions in our chat with Marisol de la Fuente. By the end of our conversation, you'll also discover what made Marisol leave a successful corporate career to become a sommelier, why she built her wine content for beginners instead of wine experts, how identifying a single aroma during a wine tasting convinced Marisol she belonged in the wine world, the wine myths she most wants consumers to stop believing, which modern wine trends are actually thousands of years old, why Marisol believes making great white wine is more difficult than making great red wine, what the terms brut, extra brut, and demi-sec on sparkling wines really mean. I didn't know this one. I was really surprised. And the most common misconception about sparkling wines. Do you have a thirst to learn about wine? Do you love stories about wonderfully obsessive people, hauntingly beautiful places, and amusingly awkward social situations? Well, that's the blend here on the Unreserved Wine Talk podcast. I'm your host, Natalie McLean, and each week I share with you unfiltered conversations with celebrities in the wine world, as well as confessions from my own tipsy journey as I write my third book on this subject. I'm so glad you're here. Now pass me that bottle, please, and let's get started. Welcome to episode 401. So what's new in the drinks world? This week in fur, feathers, and fermentation, an ambitious cargo robbery in Rotherham, England, involving a commercial transport trailer packed with 26 pallets of festive mulled wine valued at £110,000, was recently thwarted by a remarkably sharp nose. The thief had outfitted the stolen vehicle with counterfeit registration plates and attempted to flee on foot across a field when pulled over by highway authorities. The escape plan failed completely when a specialized police canine named Rocco tracked down the runner and then proudly guarded the massive stash of holiday spice, ensuring the seasonal drinks safely reached consumers. That's one pup who definitely earned an extra treat for dinner. Meanwhile, in the hospitality world, the Book Bar just opened on Markham Street in Toronto, Ontario, blending a carefully curated independent bookstore with a full-service cocktail and wine lounge to capture the cozy charm of social reading. What a novel idea! August 5th is National Oyster Day. Oysters can switch their sex back and forth over their lives depending on water temperature and the season. They also taste of the exact waters where they grew, which is part of why they've been treated as a luxury tied to celebration and seaside drinking. I think that's what they call merroir. August 6th is National IPA Day, held on the first Thursday of August as a grassroots craft beer celebration. The style got its heavy dose of hops to survive the long sea voyage to India, where the hops worked as a natural preservative. It's also National Root Beer Float Day, a treat credited to Frank Wisner and his 1893 Black Cow in Colorado. Root beer itself was first sold as a health remedy by an American pharmacist named Charles Hyers in the late 1800s, before it found its calling in an ice cream parlor. August 7th is International Beer Day, which started in 2007 as a small gathering in a single Santa Cruz pub. It's also National Raspberries and Cream Day. Raspberry is really a cluster of tiny fruits called druplets, all fused together. August 8th is National Frozen Custard Day, a dessert that became a sensation at the 1933 Chicago World's Fair. What sets it apart from plain ice cream is that egg yolks are folded in, which gives it a dense, silky texture. It's also National Zucchini Day, which shares the calendar with the gloriously named Sneak Some Zucchini Onto Your Neighbor's Porch Night. Born from gardeners drowning in late summer squash. Pair grilled zucchini with a crisp white like Vermentino or a herby gin spritz. It's also International Cat Day, where the drink tie-in is loose on purpose because cats will never tell you what they're thinking, and it's just a cozy ritual rather than category logic. August 9th is National Rice Pudding Day, one of the oldest comfort desserts on record. Versions show up all over the world as arroz con leche, riz au lait, and kheer. August 10th is National S'mores Day, a modern food holiday that's stuck because people love a built-in excuse for a campfire treat made by sandwiching a melted marshmallow and a piece of chocolate between two graham crackers. The name, of course, is simply a contraction of s'more, as in, I like s'more, please. August 11th is National Raspberry Tart Day, and tarts trace back to the Middle Ages. It's also National Panini Day, whose name simply means small bread rolls. Back to today's episode. If you'd like to win one of 6 drinks books that I have to give away, please email me and let me know you'd like to win. It doesn't matter where you live. I'll choose 6 winners randomly from those who contact me at natalie@nataliemaclean.com. If you're reading the paperback or ebook or listening to the audiobook of my memoir, Wine Witch on Fire, Rising from the Ashes of Divorce, Defamation, and Drinking Too Much, a national bestseller and one of Amazon's best books of the year, I'd love to hear from you at natalie@nataliemaclean.com. There's also a terrific free guide for book clubs. I'll put a link in the show notes to all retailers worldwide. Okay, on with the show. Marisol de la Fuente is an international sommelier who graduated from the Argentine School of Sommeliers, a bartender who trained at the International Center of Cocktail Arts, and a journalist. She communicates about the world of wine and beverages to bring it all closer to consumers. She is also a columnist on Canal de la Suède, you can correct me, Sol, on this. I'm going to butcher these words, where she presents a different segment every week in a simple and entertaining manner. On Vinimos, her wine podcast, she answers the most common consumer questions alongside Ariel Torres, a journalist at La Nación. She also teaches her course, El Vino Sans Violeta. Thank you. This is going to be a Spanish lesson, clearly, by the time we finish, in a live online format, and also works as an instructor in sommelier programs. So beyond her passion for wine, she has spent 25 years in marketing, communication, and PR in multinational companies. She is also a digital marketing lecturer and consultant for companies in the wine and beverage industry. And I'm so happy she joins us now from her home in Buenos Aires. Hello, Sol. It's so great to have you here with us.
Hi, Natalie. Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. And don't worry for the Spanish because it is okay. You don't need to say it correctly. You just did it perfectly well.
Oh, thank you. You're being kind, but thank you. At least wine is the universal language of joy. So at least when it comes to that, we're speaking on the same language.
Exactly.
Okay, so your background, Sol, is unusual for a sommelier. You have a journalism degree, a master's in marketing, and you spent over 2 decades leading communications at multinational companies like Intel and HP. So when did you decide to leave the corporate world and maybe focus on wine?
A couple of years ago, to be exact, in 2015, I did a trip to Mendoza, that is a wine region here in Argentina. I've been there many times, but at that moment with my husband, we did some wine tastings during the trip, and I realized I can detect aromas and flavors. I have very interesting conversations with the winemakers. And so when I get back to Buenos Aires, I decided to study to be enologist, but you don't have that degree in Buenos Aires because we are very far away of the vineyards. So I thought, what else I can do or what else I can study to be in contact with this environment and this industry. And I realized that 20 years ago, I did PR for a school, the Escuela Argentina de Sommeliers. And I remember that and I said, okay, maybe I can do some research about sommelier and try to understand what it means. Magically, it's a mix between communication and some marketing and also to know about wine. So I decided to study. I did the career here in Argentina. And at the beginning, I started working like everybody on wine tastings, fairs, and that kind of events. But I realized that the best I can do is combine communication, marketing, wines, industry, and that kind of thing. So the story started there.
Yeah, you certainly have brought all your skills together in such an excellent and professional way. Now, you've also built an Instagram account at Sol Sommelier from 0 to 120,000 followers. That's amazing. What was the maybe specific piece of content that first told you were really resonating with your audience on Instagram?
I think that the story started before when people, my friends and family and people that I know in my shop, they started to ask me about wines and recommendations. So I said, what I can do? Maybe I can speak about wines and beverage in a friendly way to explain these people that don't know and they don't all need to know about wines, how to select, how to go to the supermarket. So the first couple of posts and content that I did was about that. How to select wine in the supermarket, how you can choose the best wine for a specific meeting or food. So all that content started to be very, very successful. So I realized that a lot of people in the Spanish-speaking world was very hungry to understand, to learn, to buy better. So I decided to start the account talking about this. I have a clear view about my audience. My audience is people that don't know about wine at all and they don't care. They just need the tips. They just need the suggestions. So if we are talking about, I don't know, carbonic maceration in a technical way, nobody's going to understand and nobody cares.
It's true. So you're very practical. As you say, they want the tips, they want to know which wines to buy, and you really speak to exactly what they're looking for. So now you also co-host the podcast with your partner or husband, Ariel Torres. You teach sommelier students, you advise Coviar, the Argentine Wine Corporation, on national communication strategy, and appear weekly on a TV show. When do you sleep? I don't think you do sleep. But what do you enjoy most about what you do? Is there a specific moment or part of all of that you really love the most?
No, I love the communication part. As you mentioned, I had a column in Canal de la Ciudad, it's a national channel here, also on radio. Now I have my own streaming show on Fridays. So I love to communicate, to think about, okay, we have this topic. How can we talk about this and make it fun and easy and share? So I love that part. Of course, when I teach, I also love when somebody say, "Oh, I didn't know this. My mind changed completely." But I love all. But the media is the part of my daily job that I love more.
That's great. Wow. Okay, so in 2014, you went on a wine tour through Mendoza with Ariel, and at Benacci Winery in San Rafael, a sommelier there said that there was one aromatic descriptor, one adjective in a white wine no one in the room could identify. What did you say and what happened?
It's so funny because this is part of the story when I decided to study sommelier or to be part of the industry. And also it's in the first chapter of my book because I think it was that moment when you realize, maybe I am good at this. Because in that way, wine tasting, the sommelier said, as you mentioned, this wine is very complex. You are not going to detect exactly what we have here. I'm going to tell you what it is. You are going to be totally you're going to have a total and big surprise. And I remember saying, I feel olive oils here. And then some other components and smells. And she said, okay, yes, that is
you got
the
it.
smell. She was nice. But at that moment, I realized, okay, of course, as we need to train all the smell and flavors and to identify correctly and to use that to describe a wine. But to tell you the truth, in my case, it was like, I can feel and I can separate, okay, this and this and that. And that was the kickoff for me in my decision to be part of the wine industry.
That's fairly specific. The smell of olive oil, I guess it's the molecule that creates the smell of olive in certain white wines. And it's a specific compound, if I understand correctly, that mimics that scent. But I guess when the sommelier said, you'll be surprised when I tell you, it was actually the sommelier who was surprised.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
But
because that's
sometimes today, at least in my case, when you detect something, also today I have some doubts. I'm not
Sure.
sure, but at that moment was so innocent because I just smell and say, "Oh, for me it's this." No, anyone else, at least that spirit to be a student all the time, to discover new things and to be surprised for these new things that you discover. So
Yes, always learning for sure. So your book, if I understand roughly in English, it means let me tell you about wine. What's the title in Spanish?
Te cuento el vino.
Okay, te cuente vino.
It likes, let me share with you about wine.
Ah,
That
lovely.
will be the spirit,
Okay.
you know?
Yes.
Like when you tell a story, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so tell us in a nutshell what this book is about, like how it's different, say, from other wine books.
My book is all about the basics of the wine. When the editorial called me, they asked me to do a book that could be sold in supermarkets, in bookstores, but in that part where you have the text for dummies, the easy explanation for everybody, something that can give you the overall knowledge that you need to know to understand the basics. That was the main objective. Of course, the final result was so amazing. So I was in the book fair here and it was sold out. And the book, it was present in many other environments and places and also in wineries. Because the book is nice, it's nice with the pictures and the color and the graphics, etc. But also it's a small book that you can read and understand all that you need to understand about history of wine, production of wine, and I have a huge chapter about myths because it's something that always I use in all my communication as well. I am trying to be a myth buster, so I have a chapter about all the myths that I had been hearing about wine in the last 10 years. So I put all of that also in the book. So if you read the
pairings
book,
with wine, meat and wine?
Yes, but also we had a lot of myths about, I don't know, if the bottle is heavy, the wine is better. If the cork, you
the
use,
misconceptions and myths. Yes,
misconception.
sorry.
Well,
I thought you were saying
no,
meat.
it's okay, it's okay. We said myths or mitos in Spanish, but yes, misconception because it's something that people repeat and spread, and everybody believes that. Nobody knows why. So a good example is this one. A heavy bottle has a better wine inside.
They think it's more
Why?
expensive
Yeah,
the
because it's
glass
more
is heavy. Yeah.
expensive and that kind of things. Or white wine give you headache. The headache is because you drink too much and then you don't drink water.
It's
You
true.
know, that kind of thing.
Yes. Yes, because they think it's sulfites or whatever in white wine, but it's such a small percentage of the population that even reacts to sulfites. And I've heard it said that a glass of wine has fewer sulfites than an entire jug or whatever carton of orange juice. Like, there's far more sulfites in other things we eat and drink
exactly.
than wine.
Yeah, because it's part of the fermentation, a natural component when you have some kind of fermentation. When you read my book, it's all the basics you need to know, you know.
Yes.
So
yes, absolutely. No, it's great. And is there plans to have it translated into English?
I had some conversations with Penguin Randall House. I know they are working on the book on Portuguese for the Brazilian market, and maybe later for in English. But at this moment, after a couple of years of the publication, they are working in the translation to Portuguese.
That's great.
For Brazil,
another great market.
We are very close, so.
Good, good. Okay, so you write that wine is older than the wheel, it's older than writing, and its origins predate documented history by thousands of years. And you mentioned the fermented grape evidence comes from 6000 BCE from what is now Iraq and Iran. What was the single most surprising archaeological fact about ancient wine that you came across in your research?
Something that is very interesting is when we talk about orange wines, for example, that now are very trendy and very old from Georgia. When you realize that some things that now are very cool, like natural wines or these new trends that we see on the wine industry, and most of the things already happened on the past. So naturally, as part of the process. So it's very interesting to do that connections between
what's old is new, and it comes around,
exactly.
and everybody thinks it's the hot new trend, but
Exactly.
it's a 8,000-year-old trend.
Yeah, exactly. That is very interesting.
And you describe how in ancient Egypt, wine was placed in the tombs of pharaohs to demonstrate prestige, and how at the time it was a privilege reserved for nobles, priests, and leaders. What's the most direct parallel between the ancient wine culture and modern wine world that you've discovered?
I want to talk about Argentina because it's the place that I know more, the country that I know more. I know about Latin America and some places in Europe as well, but in general and in particular in Argentina, we are still talking about wine, not me, but the industry and maybe other communicators or sommeliers. We are talking about wine in a very inspirational way. So maybe if I have to do a connection is in Egypt, they have wine. They have wine was like something very valuable and part of the processes and the all the how do you say it in English? All the customs and not custom.
Everyday drinking
exactly,
rituals. Like it wasn't
rituals,
a fancy
exactly,
thing. Yeah,
part of rituals. Wines in the past, when we try to understand the story, were part of rituals. Okay, nowadays sometimes, and I want to say that I don't feel that is 100% positive, but wine is still part of rituals. And these proposals that I see, at least here in Argentina, about wine is only for some people, and there's this wine that there are only 1,000 bottles and it's very expensive. When you see the history, when you try to understand the history, wine was always part of rituals at the beginning, religion, and then just for high level people, high society people, and now it's for everybody. But we still have some communication and some products that are very inspirational and everybody want to have. And the communication, sadly for me, in many cases is still in that way. Wine is exclusivity. Maybe that is some kind of I can do.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Now, you also note, have so many interesting facts in your book, but that the phylloxera crisis in the 19th century that nearly wiped out every vine in Europe because of a root louse, a bug that used to like to eat the roots. The continent was saved by the rootstocks that had been sent to the Americas by Jesuit missionaries. So Argentina and Chile, therefore, became, in a very real sense, the rescue supply chain for European wine, which is amazing. And then in turn, stock that was taken over from Europe and planted in the two countries, the phylloxera didn't have an easy go of it. Why was that?
Why is a very good question. What I describe is the story, the history. I think that in Latin America, we have had the colonization from Spain, mainly. Wine in Spain was very important at the moment, is very important at this time. I imagine they bring with them the wines and the plants and everything. So I believe when the phylloxera happened, they needed to track how we can save the vineyard or how we can save the production, where we can find the correct plants and wherever. And of course, where the Spanish people was at that moment, they found what they need. But I don't have a why or an answer for the why. I know that is part of the story. When we describe that here in Argentina, we always say the colonization bring to Argentina the vines, but at the same time, when they have a problem, we send it back and we save the wine in Europe, in the old world. And so we are very connected with the old world. Also, when you think about the wine industry in Argentina, the wines that had been producing here until the decade of 90, the wines here were like the Spanish wines. We
In
have
style.
a huge impact of the culture and the immigration, the difference through the history and the original styles that we used to produce here were very Spanish style.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, you also talk about a producer in Patagonia who experienced 30 frosts in a single month of ripening. And we have to keep in mind, like for us in the Northern Hemisphere, that the farther you go south in the Southern Hemisphere, the colder it gets, and your harvests are reversed from ours, more like March, April. So he was farming at 40 43 degrees south latitude with winds, extreme temperature swings, -4 degrees Celsius sometimes. What kind of wine does those conditions produce? And do you have to be crazy to farm in those conditions?
Well, first I have to say that we have the highest vineyards on the world, 3,000 meters over the level of the sea in the north of the country.
The mountainous plantings, yes.
Yeah, exactly. In Salta state, or Salta provincia de Salta. And we have the more australes, the vineyards in the south, as you mentioned, are the southest vineyards on the world. And the climate conditions in all these places, we have 24 states in Argentina, and we produce wine in 18. So you have all the climates, all the altitudes, you have everything. In the south, in this example that you mentioned it before, that happened in the Chubut provincia, Chubut state. And the wine there is very elegant and very fresh. Why? Because you have huge difference between day and night in terms of temperature. But
which is
also,
good thing.
yeah, but also you have a lot of sunlight, many hours, maybe from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. So that is very positive for the process, especially when you need for the maturity of the fruit.
Because the grape skins really develop those complex flavors. They call it the phenolics. Yeah.
Exactly. So you have a lot of acidity because of the low temperature, but at the same time you have a great grape because the sun, many hours of sun, also with high acidity. So these wines are very elegant, very fresh, but with a lot of fruity notes.
Right.
But it's true, in the Patagonia, here in Argentina, we have different provinces that are producers in the south. We have water that is different in the Cuyo region, close to Andes, at the mountains. Why? Because there is desert or semi-desert. So in the south, we have water. So because we have water, we can use the water to avoid the freezing, the low temperatures, and the damage to the grapes. So it's a very good condition. Yeah. It's difficult because it's far away of everything. You have logistic costs. The productions are small in general, and that wines in Patagonia in general are expensive wines. And you are going to find those wines in restaurants, in very good restaurants, Michelin restaurants in Buenos Aires and all over the world and Latin America. Because they produce a small quantity, but very high quality.
And have to ship a long way. So you also mentioned there are more than 10,000 grape varieties that exist, I think, in Argentina or in the world?
No, in the world.
In the world, okay. Yeah, I was going to say, that's a lot for one country.
No, in the world.
But you point out that only about 33 grapes account for half of all wine production globally. Now, you describe Torrontés, the grape Torrontés, is the most beautiful indigenous native grape of Argentina. I am a huge fan of this wine, but tell us what a Torrontés wine tastes like. It's always white wine, is it?
White wine.
No, experimenting?
White.
Okay.
No,
it's always
white grape and white wine. Here in Argentina, we have many different grapes varieties. We have more than 150 different grape varieties that we produce. But the two that are the relevant or the flagship grapes here are, in the case of red, Malbec. That is not very common all over the world. 75% of the production is here, even when this is a French grape from Cahors. But here we produce the 75% of all the production worldwide. And the white wine, the white grape, is a Torrontés. That is local grape. It's the only one that we call the local grapes criollas. It's like native. But this is an interesting native because it's a good mix and a good grape to produce wines. And Torrontés has these characteristics. It's like you have fruit, you have flowers, you have fresh vegetables, and on the nose is like you feel that the wine is going to be sweet. But it's not, because in general it's dry. Of course, we have also sweet Torrontés, but what I mean is, it's an explosion in your nose. You have
Yes.
All the
It's so aromatic.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
it's
very
incredible.
aromatic. But for the international taste, maybe it's too much aromatic.
Yeah.
So this is the reason why I can say that around 80% of the production of Torrontés is for internal market. Because we export Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay like many other wine countries. But Torrontés is more difficult to export because for many people or many consumers around the world, it's very intense. For me, it's amazing. It's beautiful to drink alone, to drink on cocktails, because as you said, it's very aromatic. You have from jasmine to peach and I don't know, many different fruits and flowers and vegetables in just one wine. That is not
Yeah,
very
it's
common.
absolutely gorgeous. Yeah.
Mhm.
I compare it to Viognier or Gewürztraminer. It's the really floral, even though it's its own thing, I think of them together sometimes. Yeah. Now, you write that making a good white wine is harder than making a good red because whites are fermented without the skins and therefore more fragile and prone to oxidation. But most people think red wine is more serious and a more technical achievement. So, what is the single step, do you think, in white wine production that people don't think about but really determines the outcome, the quality of the wine?
When the grapes arrive to the winery, and you need to control temperature and extraction and to try to avoid oxidation. I think that is the most critical part on the process. If you try to explain to a consumer that, it is possible that the consumer is not going to understand much what you are talking about. But what I always said when I talk with consumers about white wines, first I want to say this. In Argentina, it's very common to hear, wine is red wine. Whites are for girls. Okay, that is a very common phrase. So when I talk with someone that is sharing with me that thought, I always try to demonstrate that it's not. It's always happened on wine tastings. So in general, I had a very good white wine with me in my tastings to demonstrate that a white wine can be amazing, young or with more time on the bottle. It's not important, but I trying to demonstrate why the combination, the flavors, the aromas, in many cases are maybe better than a red wine, a regular red wine. But technically, we all know that the oxidation part and when the grapes arrive to the winery, that technical part is the most important one.
It's the most important. No.
Then you can do surly or not, or do a fresh wine, or use oak or not. But
And that is a good myth that you point out, how people don't think of white wines as, but when we think of Bordeaux, there's the 5 top wines of Bordeaux, and above them all is a white wine, Chateau Yquem. Now, it's a dessert wine, but it is a white wine. So it's considered one of the best wines in the world. Now, one of the myths that I thought that was really fascinating that I've never read this in another book. You explain that brut or brut, B-R-U-T, on sparkling wine, extra brut, and demi-sec on sparkling wine labels refers to the amount of sugar in grams per liter added at the very end of the production in the expedition liquor or the dosage. It's not those terms don't refer to the general dryness of the base wine. People assume it's describing the overall character of the wine or the sweetness. So why do you think the wine industry has not bothered to communicate this more clearly? Because I've never heard it pointed out like you have,
well,
which is great.
This is a very good question, because here something else happened. If you think about brut, extra brut, people here believes that extra brut is better than brut because it's extra.
Right,
huh?
extra.
So
Yeah.
they believe that description on the label, as you said, is about quality. I don't know why the wine productions or the sparkling wine producers are not changing that, but I all the time when I talk about sparkling wines and try to share that, and it's incredible because each time I talk about that, people answer me, I didn't know. I believe that it was about the quality of the wine. Extra brut is better than the other. And it's something that is funny, but this is about maybe Spanish, because sec or demi-sec, that are the sweet ones, sec seco in Spanish is dry. So
means ripe. Okay.
dry is dry.
Oh, dry. Dry,
So
sorry, yes.
the name of the name meaning the opposite in Spanish. So
that's got to be really confusing. Oh my gosh.
Sec and demi-sec, and it's sweet. And in Spanish, sec is dry. It's seco.
Wow, okay.
So it's
Oh, my
very,
goodness.
very confusing. This is the reason why many producers here started to put on the label sweet, dulce.
Okay. Well, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed our chat with Marisol. Here are my takeaways. Number 1, how did Argentina help save Europe's vineyards during the devastating Phylloxera crisis? So the Phylloxera crisis in the 19th century nearly wiped out every vine in Europe because of a root louse, a lousy louse. The continent was saved by rootstocks that had been sent to the Americas by Jesuit missionaries. So Argentina and Chile therefore became the rescue supply chain for European wine. As Marisol explains, in Latin America, they have the colonization from Spain mainly. So wine from Spain was very important at that time. And when Phylloxera happened, they needed to save their vineyards, but they also needed the right rootstock and plant material. They found what they needed in Argentina. As she says, we always say colonization brought Argentina the vines, but at the same time, when they were a problem in Europe, we sent them back and saved Europe's wines. So we're very connected, she says, with the old world. Number 2, why is wine still treated as an exclusive product despite being more accessible than ever? Marisol described how in ancient Egypt, wine was placed in the tombs of pharaohs to demonstrate prestige, and how at the time it was a privilege reserved for nobles, priests, and leaders. So we talked about the most direct parallel between that ancient wine culture and the modern wine world. As Marisol says, in Argentina, we're still talking about wine in a very aspirational way. In the past, wine was something very valuable and part of these rituals. It was just for higher level people, high society, and now it's for everyone. But we have some communication work to do to dispel that wine is purely exclusive. And number 3, how can vineyards that endure extreme temperatures still produce elegant, vibrant wines? Marisol talks about a producer in Patagonia who experienced 30 frosts in a single month of ripening. He was farming at 43 degrees south latitude with winds and extreme temperature swings. Marisol says Argentina has the highest vineyards in the world, as well as the most southern vineyards. The climate conditions in these places are very different. In the south, the wines are elegant and fresh because you have a huge difference between day and night temperatures, but you also have a lot of sunlight from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., so that's very good for the maturity of the fruit, developing these complex flavors. You also have a lot of acidity because of the low temperatures. If you missed episode 343, go back and take a listen. I chat about what is vital about Argentina's old vine Malbec, as well as Ontario's wine future with Anne Sperling and Peter Gamble. They are winemakers, superstar winemakers, in both regions, and I'll share a short clip with you now to whet your appetite.
In that 1905 to 1925 period, there was the greatest genetic diversity amongst the Malbec plantings because they were still learning about it. There were subsequently a couple of periods where authorities felt that we needed to modernize and change to Syrah and Cabernet Sauvignon, so Malbec got pulled out. Our vineyard reflects that time when genetic diversity was appreciated. The other thing is in that 1920s period up until the Great Depression, 1929, 1930 and onwards, Argentina was a wealthy country. People not only had the culture of enjoying great food and wine, but they had the money to promote that and to live a rich life, and they wanted their homegrown wines to reflect that. That's the era in which the vineyard was planted in order to make great wine.
You won't want to miss next week when we continue our chat with Marisol. Do you know someone who'd be interested in learning more about the wines of Argentina? Please let them know about this podcast. Email or text them now while you're thinking about it. It's really easy to find the Unreserved Wine Talk podcast. Just tell them to search for that title or my name, Natalie McLean Wine, on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, their favorite podcast app, or they can listen to the show on my website at nataliemclean.com/podcast. In the show notes, you'll find a link to take a free online food and wine pairing class with me called The 5 Food and Wine Pairing Mistakes That Can Ruin Your Dinner and How to Fix Them Forever at nataliemclean.com/class. And that's all in the show notes at nataliemclean.com/401. Thank you for taking the time to join me here. I hope something great is in your glass this week. Perhaps an Argentine Malbec with some salsa. You don't want to miss one juicy episode of this podcast, especially the secret, full-bodied bonus episodes that I don't announce on social media. So, subscribe for free now at nataliemclean.com/subscribe. Meet me here next week. Cheers.